I'm going to be making a 15 to 17 inch platter using a Japanese tool called a cow tongue or gyubeta. This is a large, long, flat rib. One end is curved up and the other one is flatter. And the great thing about it is that you can really apply the pressure evenly over a broader space rather than having those smaller ribs and moving back and forth. That ends up creating uneven surfaces. You can use one end, the curved end, to create a nice curved rim for making something like a low pasta dish or antipasto platter. I used it for that reason, but then I changed my mind and decided that I wanted to make a flat-rimmed platter instead. So here you can see that I switched the rib over and just applying pressure a little more widely, just evening out the bottom. Make sure that you maintain some lubrication on the whole thing so that it doesn't drag over your piece. You can make a nice clean edge to the bottom of the platter too with the flatter side of the cow tongue. For trimming, I use this tool called a umakaki, which is about 3 inches long, and it just allows you to take off larger pieces from the bottom for a more even surface. It's unlike the Western tools that we use that are only about 1 inch long, and again, they give you more uneven surface. I like this tool a lot. Once you get the hang of how to hold it and apply pressure, it's a great tool. When the clay is dry enough, I turn it over and I apply some colored underglaze to it with a Chinese brush, and then use the fluting tool to clean up the edge of it. But you can also use that tool to make consistent grooves in the clay, however which way you want. I was kind of playing around with this platter. I didn't have that much of an idea of what I wanted to do. I was wanting to see more or less what the tools could do. And once the underglaze strips were hard enough, you get the wheel spinning a lot, and this tool is called a chattering tool. It takes a while to figure out how to use it and how dry the underglazes need to be in order to get the tool to jump. But nonetheless, whatever marks it makes in the clay is pretty cool. This is another kind of chattering tool that makes more of a line. The other one with a pointy edge makes more of a dot. So I'm making a couple of 9-inch bowls that can be used for salad or udon or serving vegetables. I'm going to use the smaller gyubeta, the smaller cow tongue, as the rib. I first throw the piece to about the size that I want, but then use the rib to really even out the walls and compress the floor of the piece, the bottom of the piece. It's a nice shape, it's a nice size to hold. It's not too flimsy in your hand, and you definitely aren't going to risk slicing yourself like some of those metal ribs that we use. Make sure you keep it lubed all the time too. So the curved part goes down towards the bottom once the bottom is compressed with the flatter side, and it just allows for consistent walls of the piece. just making the second one now. I think the smaller Gubetta and the larger one, the larger cow tongue, the size of them is nice to hold, and you can get a lot of consistency from piece to piece with them. I like to tap the pieces into center and then use clay plugs to hold it down to the wheel head as opposed to using the grip and grip. It's just my preferred way of trimming. And now I'm using the Kana trimming tool. One side is straight and longer. The other side of it, you can switch it around like a dental tool and use that too. My cat is curious about what I'm doing, but his claws don't really help me trim. And another Kana tool has a rounded side, and you can use that if you want to maintain the roundness in the pieces. The bowls that I do aren't, a typical, I don't put in a typical deep foot like you'd see in a traditional Japanese form, because they are more American, I suppose. Nonetheless, the tools are great to use for taking off large pieces of excess clay. There's a lot of options when you, in these Kana tools. This part here has a little bit of an angled side to it, and you can cut in well. You can cut in easily. I like to tap the piece to know that it's thick enough. There's a certain kind of sound, somewhat of a hollow sound, when you know that it's just right. And then I could go back to using the cow tongue, the Gubetta, to smooth down and compress, to compress the clay back in. Once the clay is leather hard and I apply a thick rim of colored underglaze, I basically do the same method as I did with the platter, in that I use the fluting tool to clean up the edge of it, and then the pointed chattering tool this time to make a thin line, which I like. It gives it kind of a retro look. And I'm using the flat-sided chattering tool to make the jumping, the patterned lines. It's hard to see. There you go. It gives you a little bit of an idea of how it will come out. And then I use the fluting tool around the rim of it. There's something different. It's been fun to play with these tools to see what I can come up with. Here you can see the variety of detail and texture that you can get using the tools.